Here we are,
Here we are, not here again.
back in the box.
Back in the box. It's like in that movie Virtuosity.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
Forgot about
When
that.
when Sid thinks he's out of the box at the end, you know?
Yeah.
He tries it. And then he realizes he's back in the computer and he can do anything he wants.
Wasn't there a movie still from that movie? Wasn't that your first website, or at least the one?
Holy
whenever
fuck, Dave! How do you remember that? That was like in 2000 when
It
I
was
made
in
that
2000.
website.
Wow.
Jesus, good call. Because the only reason why I can say yes is because I recently stumbled upon old photos I had saved from that time frame, and I was like, "Oh yeah, that's my old website." I totally forgot about that. I can't believe you remember that. That was my DJ site. Yeah, I had like an edited picture of Sid doing his little Scream orchestra thing.
Because I remember
Yeah.
Jeff, a friend of ours, sent it to me and was like, "Hey, do you know anything about this this guy?" And I was like, "No, but clearly, we need to talk to this person." Like it was one of those like social barometer passing like immediately. I remember that site because it was love at first sight.
Thanks.
Yeah, it was great. I really did enjoy it.
Big fan of that movie, even though it's cheesy as fuck.
Yeah. Should we watch that?
I love all 90s VR tech related films. Speaking of which, episode
wow.
34
No?
brought to you by Matrix Resurrections.
Oh, we got the
Go to a
sponsorship.
theater near you and watch your childhood die.
I take it we all saw it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dave saw it at my place, I think, right?
Yeah, no, I was there
Okay.
for it.
Yeah,
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah, I saw it that night after, I think. Dog
I
shit.
enjoyed it.
Dog shit.
My expectations were very low, which I think helped. And I also knew, like, after the first part, I was like, oh, this is getting, like, real meta and breaking down some fourth wall and stuff. I just sort of relaxed and was like, you know what? I'm just going to enjoy this for what it is. So I think that, I think that helped me enjoy it. Because I know there's a lot of complaints and there's a lot of people have a lot of problems with it. But I don't know. I feel like they had a lot on their minds and they got it off their chest.
I enjoyed it more as it progressed. Initially, I was like stunned by some things in it, and I was like, "Wow, this is where it's gonna start at." But it got a little more interesting and more fun, and the self-referential parts of it were, good. But
I didn't like the fact that so much of Keanu Reeves' like resolution to fight issues was just pushing people with what appears to be some kind of Jedi push.
Yeah.
Considering like the
Oh, yeah,
fight
yeah.
scenes, the fight scenes in the original movies were amazing, and obviously he still has the chops because he's doing John Wick movies, and the fight scenes in those are amazing. This just seemed like how did you not combine an aging Keanu Reeves who obviously can still do it with the expectations of a Matrix movie having amazing action, and then him just kind of walking around and putting two hands up and pushing people away. That was that of all the complaints I had, I think that was the one that was like, this is making this a little tedious.
yeah, it felt very tedious.
Greg,
Yeah.
I'm done. Like I can see you. We're doing this over video, so I can see like you looking anxious. Like what are your thoughts on the new Matrix movie?
I don't know. I liked it and I didn't like it at the same time. Like for every part of it that I liked, there was like two parts that I thought was cheesy. Like you were saying, the action scenes, like I don't know, they were so breakthrough, groundbreaking with the original, and even with the sequels, they were still good. Like the action was like, even if the story started to suck in 2 and 3, at least the action scenes were still cool. This, it's like they, dropped the ball in the action a lot. But the story was actually decent, unlike the other sequels, in my opinion. Like,
Yeah.
I kind of liked where it was. Some parts looked amazing. Like, every scene in the machine world I thought was fantastic. The whole, like, what the hell was it? Like, the Stingray robot thing that was, like, carrying Trinity and stuff like that in the machine world. Like, all the robots looked cool and stuff. But then, like, some of the scenes in, like, the Matrix looked like a fucking made-for-television movie. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It was just strange.
Yeah,
Very
and, like,
inconsistent.
the cute, helpful robot thing, and I was just like, none of this lands for me. You know, it seems like not super. I don't know. Like it wasn't very well put together.
It was strange though. Yeah, I don't know. On one hand, I was happy to return to the world of the Matrix, 20 years later or whatever. But on the other hand, some things are just better left alone. I guess I don't know. I wouldn't mind seeing more. Just I don't think they should be directed by Lana at this point. Like I think she's tapped out. I think she should let someone else roll with it. I mean, fuck, let the people doing John Wick do it or something at this point.
I would love to see. After they did the original Matrix movies, and I forget when exactly this came out, they did the Animatrix, which was a bunch of animation shorts in that universe. I thought that was fucking amazing. If they did another one of those,
it was the best Matrix sequel for sure.
Yeah, like an updated version of those, I think I'd totally be fucking fired up for.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was a lot more satisfied with like the Tron reboot for comparison. I just thought for the series and for the stature of it that this was a failure.
I would agree in that regard for sure. In fact, that popped in my head a couple times as I was watching it. I was like, I remember being in the theater in the IMAX and watching the Tron, sequel and thinking, fuck, like this kind of nailed it, and it's been so long since the original, and like I was kind of that sequel felt more Matrixy to me than any of the Matrix sequel, you know what I mean? So I was kind of hoping that this would be like that, but not really. And the sound design was trash.
It was, dude.
Yeah.
The sound design was kind of bonkers trash.
Even the sound mixing, like the simple shit, like the vocal, mixing, I thought was really fucking weird. It was really hard to hear some parts. Anytime Bugs talked, it was like inaudible. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know.
I mean, especially when you compare it. I mean, we're obviously going to continue to compare it to the Tron Legacy. The sound design for that was fucking incredible. Like,
fantastic.
From the soundtrack to the incidentals to the Foley work to all the mixing. I mean, honestly, this conversation is making me just kind of want to go back and watch that again.
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, I'm not even like a fan of Daft Punk, but
same.
I can't deny that I bumped that soundtrack like on a regular basis when that came out.
That's one of my favorite things they've ever done, that soundtrack. Since we're all taking sips, crucial question. What are y'all drinking? Got some Essentia water there for Greg, I see.
Yeah, I just had my green sludge vitamin mix, and now I'm washing that down with some plain old water and a Trader Joe's blueberry lemonade seltzer. Nothing fancy today.
It's not called green sludge, right? I mean, that has a different name, doesn't it?
No, it's called Athletic Greens. This episode of SysEx Dumpster brought to you by Athletics Greens. In every tasty scoop, there's enough B vitamins to keep you patching through the night.
That sounds great. Could I get some? Where could I get it?
You sure can. Just enter code SysEx Dumpster 6969 on the website and save 3%.
That's big savings. I can't wait to get my Athletics Greens using the SysEx Dumpster code.
Does the green sludge work, Greg?
You've been drinking it for a while now, so it must be doing something.
It's been a couple months. I enjoy it, yeah. Because I was deficient in B vitamins, and the supplement I was taking was like sometimes not enough, sometimes too much. It was really weird. But this seems to be a good mix. It's a fucking vitamin that you drink. That's about it.
Right.
Nothing. I notice I have more energy, like an hour after I drink it. That's about it. I have no idea if anything in it is actually doing anything else and keeping me, healthy. But that's what they claim. So I'll roll with it.
Yeah, nice. I'm drinking a lager from Old Thunder Brewing Company. It's kind of local. It's in Blanoxborough. I mean, really, the only thing in Blanox that I'm aware of is pianos and stuff, and that cafe that's kind of across the street from it. That's pretty good.
I'm amazed that there's anything worth mentioning in Blahniks that isn't pianos and stuff.
Yeah.
Is it on the come up? Is it like the next gentrified area?
It sounds like it.
Kind of.
They got a microbrewery.
Yeah.
What it's like suburbanish, and it seems like it's always been that way for a minute. Because I kind of used to work out there when going to work involved getting in a car.
Yeah, because you were the one who told me about that cafe that's that is delicious.
It is delicious.
It's definitely worth going to after going to pianos and stuff. I don't know if I'd go out there just for that, though.
Yeah, they were like kind of, at least at the start of things, too, they were like, yeah, we're never going to wear masks in here, and none of this is real, too.
Oh,
and that
no.
kind of turned me and a few others off from being like, you're cool, but not really.
That's a bummer.
Yeah. Cool people, but...
What about you, Nick? What are you drinking?
I'm drinking this Kentucky Christmas morning stout that my brother gave me when I saw him over the holiday. And it's like almost 12%. I don't like stouts, but this one tastes kind of like chocolate milk in a way, so I kind of like it more than others. But today kind of necessitated a beer. I have not been drinking much at all.
It's a beer kind of day. It's
Yeah, that's for fucking sure.
So, it's been a while since we recorded.
How long has it been? When the hell did we do
it's
episode
like November
33?
Yeah, I think it was November.
But it ain't too bad then. Or we re-released it in November, but I think we recorded it in like early October, right?
Yeah, maybe. No,
Maybe, yeah. That's cool.
Well, hi, new listeners.
Yeah.
Sorry that your life has led you here.
Yeah.
Well, no. They're getting that sweet deal on Green Sludge. It's already paid for itself, really.
Right.
God damn, how... Yeah, it's just dawned on me, like 34 episodes. It's a lot.
It is.
It's a lot.
And
A lot of babbling.
No, we won't give any of you any discounts on any sales.
Yeah, so stop asking.
Please.
People. I'm glad that you listened, but that doesn't mean you deserve a discount. You should give us a discount.
This like low ball offer I got on Reverb for like a Mint Pyramid Mark III. That was like some shameful shit. They tried a few times too, like, but I'll pay you in cash now. I'm like, yeah, everyone's gonna pay right now. That's how fucking Reverb works, dude. Like, I'm gonna get paid. I get it. And luckily, it went to some very cool, seemingly not male composer who was super psyched to get a pyramid. So that made me happy.
Oh, that's awesome.
Go to that fucking douchebag that wanted it for like and I was the lowest one on Reverb too. I was already like gunning to sell, you know what I mean? And they were like, how about $200 less? It's like, fuck you. I would keep it for that. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. No, that's the best, dude. Like when someone comes at you with a really shit offer and you go back and forth and you start to contemplate it. You're like, well, okay, maybe I'll hook you up. Like, I don't know. Like no one else has bit on it yet. I'll take a loss, whatever. But then you're like, you know what? No, you're being an extra douche. Fuck it. I'll just hang on to it. And then out of nowhere, someone who's like really genuine and not lowballing you comes out of nowhere with an offer, and it's like, yay, it's going to a good home. I didn't get screwed over. You know, like that happened with the Metropolix and stuff like that. Like, that dude that kept trying to lowball me on muffs and like going back and forth. And eventually I told him, I was like, you know what? The deal's off, man. He was like, oh, well, sorry if you feel that way about another $10. I'm like, no, it's not about the $10. It's about the fact that, like, I gave a price, you lowballed it, I even counter-offered, and then you lowballed that again. You know what I mean? It's like, no, dude. And then the next day, someone paid full price, you know?
Yeah.
And there was also those modules that ended up going to Kid 606 that someone tried to lowball me on, and I passed. And then I was like, okay, cool. Now let's go into someone that I'm really happy to see it. You know, I know these people are going to use it.
Right.
You know, all these people that are lowballing are just, you know, trying to flip it on Reverb, you know, the next day.
That would have been
$20 or $50 or whatever. And it's like, screw you.
That shit would have been on Reverb the next day for the same amount before it even arrived.
Do we want to lay out a formula or a format for this episode? How do we want to approach this? Do we want to... I've been watching a lot of Letterkenny. So the first thing I thought was, how do we want to fuck this pig? Which was like not a great way to say this, but it's the end of the year, kinda. It's weeks after the end of the year, but we didn't really do a recap of 2021. A year that seemed both incredibly short and infinitely long at the same time.
This year's still like a freshly lit Newport cigarette, 2022.
So we joked at the start of 2020 in our, I think, yearly wrap up that 2020 was going to be the year of granular. And that was correct for the most part. There was a lot of granular stuff that came out throughout that year. 2021, last year, we joked that 2021 was going to be the year of lush reverbs. And I think that was kind of spot on, too. There's been a lot of big reverb modules that came out. I was going to ask everyone before we got into our reviews, what do we think 2022 has in store for us?
So you're asking us to use this power that we didn't really even necessarily know we had to predict the future, to predict trends. Yeah. I mean, what we say right now could affect the stock market.
It could. It's in our hands, dude. It's in our
I don't
hands.
know if I'm ready for this responsibility.
Her life is in your hands, dude.
Her life is in your hands. He asked me to repeat that. Fuck.
What will it be? Maybe things from 2021 actually coming out will be part of it.
That's probably a big one. I was going to say 2022 is going to be the year of the hybrid. Yeah.
So what are you basing this prediction on?
I'm basing that on the fact that 2021 was plagued with sparsity and component shortages in the world of modular. And I think it's going to push both manufacturers and enthusiasts to go back inside the box to bring their designs out and create music to some degree. Not all the way, but to some degree. I think the days of a new modular company popping up every week and putting out yet another envelope generator are over.
Oh, absolutely.
I think the companies, the big names that have established themselves leading up to this point are going to remain solid, but we're going to see fewer but more innovative designs from them. I think you have to be less selective. Vanilla shit.
Because of this parts shortage, because of the time to market, you could get away when getting parts was easy and convenient and cheap. And, if you made an envelope and you threw it out there and it was indistinguishable from the rest, but, a couple people bit, it was worth it. Or, now that I don't think there's a lot of room now for a module that's not going to sell particularly well or not stand out. But I think we've made this prediction in the past that the days of the we're not going to see another Pittsburgh take over Dover. We're not going to see like the next simple utility company. It's got to be innovative, and all that stuff is out there. I mean, you look at reverb, not flooded maybe isn't the right word, but if you want nuts and bolts modules, if you want to get started, every function you want, there's a million of them out there, and there's a million of them on reverb. It's the used market right now for that stuff is out.
It's
out
saturated.
And I think,
saturated.
Like you're saying, it'll fragment. Like there won't be another Pittsburgh modular, but there will be a bunch of other people like G-Storm Electro and other people that are making like 20 of something and putting it online, because you can't even get like. I was just looking at resistors to try to build a DIY kit the other day, and it was like minimum like 2,000 or 200 for an order to get something. It's like, oh shit, like the gravy train for even being able to build something, that became like 20 times as much of a pain in the ass, and I don't think that'll ever stop now. I think it's always going to be tight now.
Yeah, a decade ago, like when modular was starting to take off, it was the price that was keeping most people out. Now it's price and availability.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to go a few steps backward to where it was like a decade ago, where only like the really enthusiastic people were getting into modular, and it was considered more of a boutique, thing. It wasn't that mainstream yet. You know what I mean? And I think it's going to go back in that direction, and everyone else is going to be forced to go into like a hybrid type of situation, kind of like I'm doing, which I'll touch on later with, you know, my top picks for 2021. But yeah, that's how I see it. You know, obviously the shortages aren't going anywhere or getting any better, rather.
No.
Availability of stuff is hard right now. Even if you can afford the inflated prices, things are still hard to get right now. Yeah. It's a bad time.
I don't even think it's the supply chain per se either. That's like definitely what's happening now, but that's like the start of the new change of like, it's going to be harder to get things just period. Because they're going to be, there's not infinite cadmium in the world. You know, there's not infinite lithium. There's not all these resources that you need to make things. So people will have to be more selective, but it was kind of natural anyway. Shit was too big.
Yeah. And on top of that, you got your shipping costs and delays and
inflation. Inflation's not going to get any better. Yeah.
And people don't want to wait a year for a drum machine sometimes. You know what I mean? They might just be like, oh, just, you know, go back in the box, like Greg was saying. Just use something like that you can create a virtual plugin of.
Yeah. 2022, a thinning of the herd.
Yeah.
That's my prediction.
Same.
Okay.
I have a more abstract prediction. I'm looking at the success of the Polyend tracker. There's not been a ton of innovation at least in the software side of trackers.
No.
But basically looking back and going, what can we take out of a computer and put in a box? And I think the success of the Polyend tracker, I think maybe is like, what other things can we put in a box that isn't just a groove box, that isn't just an electron box, that isn't, you know, basically trying to be a little bit more innovative. I think the days of like an MPC knockoff or an electron knockoff, I for the same reasons that I mentioned above, I think like if you're going to come to market, you've got to stand out. I think you got to swing for the fences now.
Yeah, and that's what I think, like, there's this complexity ceiling too that I think people have even reached with a lot of these things, and how feasible it is for a company to put out these like mini computers. Like, so I retweeted from our Twitter account like that picture of somebody playing live in some club. They're about to play a jungle set with just two of those M8 trackers and then one of those 1010 mixers, like the blue box mixer or whatever it is. And that's what I think like the theme too is going to be, like, less people realize like you don't need like that much to do what you're trying to do. And you probably should just get by with less. And these things are so powerful now, like just build a little thing and then go and then use some hybrid system. But like, nobody needs all the shit to do what you got to do, and it's too hard to get. So there will be some focus there. And that's kind of where I'm at too. Like I, you know, picked up a few little utility things, but I don't need any oscillators. I don't need like a lot of shit anymore. I definitely don't need any more sequencers, you know, like I'm going to just chill for a minute and just use what I have.
So do we have any other predictions for 2022?
That was the only one I came up with. For you know, just more people, you know, shifting directions, rather. Like there seems to be a lot of people trying to go all modular, which even I was doing for a while too, but now I'm kind of pulling that back, you know.
I wonder too, like, live shows have not come back, and you know, we're going to be coming up on 2 years now of a lot of canceled shows. I wonder how much impact that's having on you know, people's layout and what they're doing and what they're buying, with, you know, no longer an eye for what I can use live, what I can drag around.
I feel like that ties in kind of with the prediction that 2022 is going to be a big push for hybrid environments and virtual environments. For, you know, for the same reasons. Like manufacturers are starting to make virtual gear that you can use in VR. To DJ or even do sound design. There's DAWs and synths that you can use in VR now, and you can do, you know, you can use those live in a VR show.
Huh.
What is the sound quality of, like, when you join something like that?
Depends on your gear.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, I can route my audio output through my system in my studio, which I've done for some of the virtual events I've gone to, which is nice. You know, then I get my subwoofer going and everything, and it's loud and in my face. But like, most people, I think, just use whatever speakers or earpieces are part of their headset. You know, like I have the Valve Index, which has a really good headset. So,
yeah, I noticed that company Subpack too. Remember they make that wearable like subwoofer kind of thing. It seems like they're teasing some new piece of gear, and I was like, oh, I haven't thought about them. for a while. I always wanted to try one of those, but never like did. And I wonder if they're not gonna somewhat cater to that new demand for being in like some virtual show and having some better bass response. If they could do that cheaply, I could see people jumping on that.
It's just funny though, because like, I mean, the numbers aren't lying. This does seem like this is true, but like, you know, given our ages, we've all been hearing this since the early 90s. VR has been the future for 30 years now.
Yeah.
And it's funny that it does seem like it's kind of true, but it's hard not to have a skeptical eye towards like, are you sure it's actually going to be the future this time? Because I've heard this like a dozen times now.
It's the pandemic, you know, that really made it take off. You know, I mean, it's what got me to finally dip into it. You know what I mean? Just being in lockdown and all that shit, being bored.
So you think the metrics might be different if we weren't all in lockdown?
Absolutely. You know, like it's been a slow burn, slowly growing. Like the index came out. When it came out, I think Valve predicted that it would sell 1 million units in the course of like a year or two, and it ended up selling that within I think 3 months or something like that.
Wow.
Oh wow!
Like like they sold out and was back ordered within the first few months of the pandemic. Like everyone started jumping into VR, and they had to ramp up manufacturing to meet that demand. And because of that rapid growth, we're seeing a bunch of like little no-name companies coming up out of the woodwork and like doing Kickstarters to fund like really interesting gear to augment the shit that people like Facebook and Valve are doing. You know what I mean? Like there's this company called Tundra now. They're offering these trackers that are like half the size, twice as much battery life than like your standard trackers that you can get and things like that. So a lot more friendly for people that want to like have full body tracking and dancing in VR and shit.
Do you happen to know if they are related to the Tundra group, the AV group Tundra?
I don't think they're related to anything. I think this is the first product, basically.
I remember that group though.
I remember the name, but yeah, I don't think Tundra is even their name. I think Tundra is the name of the tracker. I forget what they're actually the name is, but
saw Tundra at Mutech a couple years ago, pre-pandemic, and it was amazing. Not germane to this conversation, obviously, but
no. But I think to your question, Dave, I think this will be the thing where it persists kind of forever at this point. I think it's inevitable that some sort of reality like this will be overlaid on top of this reality, because other countries are already like, it's becoming, especially in China, it seems to have more penetration than it does here as far as like, oh, I hate the term, but like metaverse and like things like that, where it's layered like activities on top of this reality, because it just makes sense. Right.
It's sort of augmented reality.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say we're entering an augmented
yeah.
reality with 2022 for sure. Yeah. 2021 was like the first step on the moon, and now we're like going to Mars, I think.
Yeah.
Like it's going rapid, I think we're gonna see augmented reality shit coming from like big people like Samsung, Apple, things like that.
Seems like it's just things the hardware like catching up at this point.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a part of day-to-day life, not just gaming headsets. I think we're going to see augmented reality glasses coming, things.
So Google Glass was basically like the Newton compared to cell phones. Google Glass was just like the precursor. It was a little crude, maybe a little before its time, but like you're going to see stuff like that come back.
Yeah, it's going to be a mix of augmented reality and AI-based applications doing things. Like, I mean, if you look on Instagram right now, or like TikTok, God forbid you're actually on TikTok, but if you look at it, like almost everything is altered by AI right now. You know what I mean? Like,
well, I mean, even your cell phone pictures at this point are a pale facsimile of reality. There's so much correction, so much AI, so much is being done in sort of modifying reality in real time.
Yeah, and I feel like that's going to jump this year and into the next, to the point where you don't have to apply AI filters to your pictures anymore to make yourself look prettier or thinner or whatever. You're going to have glasses on your face that do it fucking for you automatically in real time, and everyone's just going to start accepting that as the norm.
Right.
That's my optimistic cyberpunk dystopian opinion, but it seems like it's going that way.
So
I mean, you're also getting into some weird stuff with like Baudrillard and the simulation and copies and what is authentic and what is real and what's original, and a lot of that's just going to stop being meaningful after a while.
I think a lot of that has been like, on the edge for a while. Like we've all known it was coming and things like that, and there's been much philosophical debate about that sort of thing, but I think with the wide acceptance of VR and AI in our lives over the last 2 years during this pandemic, I think has opened the floodgates, and it's not around the bend anymore. I think it's like it's here, and it's going to be coming out in chunks throughout 2022.
I think there's a pretty serious problem though with you got to take everything with a grain of salt because this has potentially been modified, and the discipline that comes with this new technology. I don't know if we're meeting it quite yet or have the capacity to meet it, and the ability to like lie and convince and spread misinformation for various means and profit, I think it's scarily real right now.
We won't escape Black Mirror type realities, that's for sure.
Yeah, I didn't want to take it down that dystopian of a route. I'm just talking about people putting on anime girl avatars and going to raves every weekend. You know what I mean?
I'm sorry, I brought it down, everyone. But that's what I do.
Yeah, let's get back to topic. Big titty anime girls and virtual raves, Dave. That's what the people want to hear about.
I don't want that though. I don't want virtual raves. I want sweat and stink. I know.
I like both, and that's what I mean by augmented. I think the two worlds are going to collide now.
Yeah.
The pandemic isn't going anywhere. Soon we're going to see augmented shows, you know what I mean, that are going to be happening simultaneously in reality with sweat and stink, and also in a virtual world that people can attend remotely. You know what I mean? It's going to be a merging of the two worlds in some fashion.
Yeah, why not?
Absolutely.
And gear that you can manipulate physically and virtually at the same time. You know what I mean? Like that's the type of stuff I'm looking forward to.
So we've talked a lot about VR.
Yeah, probably gonna have to edit a grip of this out. Sorry for babbling.
No, it's a super interesting topic.
I don't even know how we got on VR. We were talking about how
the future.
Yeah, the future shit.
But that brings us to the past also.
Yes.
2021.
2021.
We said we were going to talk about some of the highlights of that.
Yeah,
I only have highlights. I only have highlights.
You only have highlights?
I did not put lowlights down. I think shit's been bad. Personally, globally, professionally, socially,
everything.
Yeah, so I was like, you know what? I'm only bringing the Posy youth. Posy machine.
Okay. Yeah. If we don't want to talk about.
Oh no, that's just me.
The disappointments. No, that's fine.
If you guys have disappointments, I am perfectly willing to.
I only had one, but I can do without talking about it.
Oh yeah.
To be honest, because I do have a pretty extensive list of shit that is on the up and up.
I'm up for some good criticism though. I want to hear what you thought was disappointing. Okay. I have one that's kind of like on the fence, but not really.
I also don't know if I could let this go. Like I'm really curious as to what they are now, what these negatives are. So I say go for it.
Well, let's start with the positives.
I had some highlights. One highlight was I built 9 modules in 2021. That was a new record.
Nice.
Yeah, I just realized that I keep track of it because I don't know, I'm bored, anal. But I was like, yeah, I built a bunch of stuff and liked pretty much all of them. So that was cool. Learned a lot about DIY this year, more so than before. And then I listed some modules that I thought were cool because I had to think too, some of this stuff that I like didn't come out last year. I'm deviating away from time in some regards with what stuff I like, I think a little bit but new things would be 860 Mark II. I think that was this year. It's hard to tell because I think that might have been announced before and just wasn't released until last year. But the System 80 860 and the Danny Sound multi-mode ladder, because that came out in 2021, was only DIY, so you couldn't buy assembled ones. Those 2 filters and the Piston Mark III, I don't think came out last year. I think that was out.
No, it's been out for a couple years actually, but it's just been hard to get.
Maybe 2019 even. Also. It's been out.
I think so. Yeah.
But that was new to me. It was pretty significant module. So those were all pretty cool. And the Danny Sound, I would say, that started this filter thing where I realized It's a really good filter. It's the first like kind of Moog kind of circuit I've ever had, and the overdrive is awesome. It sounds really good, and it kind of got me into like other older filters that are DIY, like the G Storm Electro stuff, like that XA VCF, which is a clone of the OBXA from Oberheim, an old polysynth, using this old chip that was just reissued, which is why some people made this module. And it sounds sweet as fuck. It's a lot cheaper than other filters I have, and it honestly destroys the Strymon filter in a lot of ways. Not that it's a competition, but I would pick that every time over a filter that's much more expensive. So yeah, I was kind of psyched on that. I'm kind of psyched I have their Delta filter on the way, which was from the Poly 61 and the Korg Delta. Korg Poly 61, which was my first synthesizer ever, which is super broken because of battery corrosion. So I get to hear that filter sound again, which I really liked, and actually be able to use it, which is something I always, for years, I was thinking, oh, could I tear the filter out of the Poly 61 somehow? But it's too complicated of a circuit. It's just, I would have to design a product essentially to do that, and this person did that. So I'm psyched on it, and it's also super nice sound quality. It doesn't sound janky at all for someone that just has a reverb store.
How was the builds?
Awesome.
For those kits?
They're all surface. Well, the G-Storm stuff is surface mount. The Danny Sound kit was awesome. It was a lot of fun to put together. It took like 4 hours probably, and was really well documented. Good calibration procedure. So I thought it was broken at first, and I just realized I was turning the little trim pots the wrong way. You know, like the 18 turn trimmers or whatever, turn them to the right, not the left. And then I heard like the filters close, and I was able to actually dial it in, and then it like totally opened up. It sounds crazy. The high pass is crazy. I love it. It sounds fucking great.
That's the Oberheim one?
Sorry, that the Danny Sound is the Moog clone. They both sound awesome, and the other one from G Storm Electro is the Oberheim clone. And I was using both of them last night to process some piston sounds and some plats, and it was fucking doing it for me, especially the plats chords. Oberheim OBXA is a poly synth, so it has a lot of mid-range bassiness to it, and really like thick, like full dub chord that like has a lot of motion to it and is not just some background thing. So I really like it. You can like whip sounds around. It's kind of hard to describe, but the way it kind of like melts around the sound's a little different than the Moog. Resonance is very different. It's like very classic resonance on the Oberheim one. The Moog one's very sweet, but the Oberheim one almost you can like play like it was the Jump synth, Van Halen Jump, which is not a sound like I'm fucking going for, but you can get like these super high resonance like sounds that sound like classic sci-fi movies almost. It's hard to describe. Maybe I'll try to throw in like a sample of it here because I recorded a bunch of that shit last night. But it's real sweet, and with the effects aid reverbs, especially the Black Hole reverb clone, which is Bloom or something like that on the effects aid, it was fucking. Some of that shit was flipping me out last night. I got some really good recordings that I'll probably try to do a track, so that was fun. But yeah, filters. I'm into
like filters.
Collecting some filters over time that are less expensive, especially these like G Storm Electro.
I was just gonna ask, like, how much do these run?
The Delta filter was $130 or something like that, not much.
Okay.
And the XA VCF was, I think it was, if I would have gotten it from him, it would have been $220, but I had to get it from Schneider's Leyden, so it was like $240 something in the end. But still, like, I've paid more than that for filters and been way less satisfied. Again, like, I wouldn't be able to get, like, that filter clone, so I'm glad they cloned it. Oberheim's not going to do it. They have, like, SH5 and 101 clones. They're the ones that did the 101 clones that kind of look like a 101. You know, they have, like, red and blue ones.
Yeah, I wanted those really bad. I was going to build a whole voice out of those, but I don't know.
Yeah, it'd be a lot of
Never got
space,
to it.
and I get it.
Exactly. I started to calculate it, and I was like, I don't need to do this.
The quality's good. I'm not interested in the 101 either, just because the 101's not like... I have the SH01A. I like it. I never use it. I just don't lust for that as much. That was good shit in 2021 that I really dug. Those are the top ones. There was other stuff that I got last year, but a lot of it was from other years or isn't anything new, you know. Like rings. I just got rings Rings is fucking incredible. I slept on that shit hardcore. That's an amazing module. It's maybe my favorite mutable module.
It is.
You have a Rings?
It's good. Oh yeah, I had like 3 of them at one point.
Okay, I thought that
but
was.
Now I'm down to just 1.
Yeah. The bass from that thing is incredible. Like,
oh yeah,
there's, I'm processing it. Like, I love the input on it. It's fucking great.
Not to plug my record, but I'm gonna plug my record.
Do it.
The record that Thaco put out this year, the split with me and Spednar. You'll hear me abusing rings all over it. A lot of the bass, a lot of percussion patches that I did, I would split off so that it would like logically get routed through rings at times and then not at others, and generate a lot of the sub bass tones on that album, or was mostly rings being manipulated in some way and handling sine waves going through it and resonating in tune with it, like, you know, finding weird tunings with it to go with the source and shit. Yeah, big fan of rings. I had a couple of them during the production of that record, but now I'm just down to 1.
Rings into Piston Honda external inputs, into Bionic Lester, into Effects Aid, though. Game fucking over. Yeah, rings into the Honda inputs. There's some magic time.
I miss the piston most of all for processing.
Yeah.
And I think I need to get one again for that because I miss it a lot.
That is, I think, what I like the most about it.
I can see
I'm
that.
actually having a couple little issues with mine right now.
Oh no. Do you have the latest firmware?
I do not. But it's, for some reason, the tuning's been a little off. So I'm going to have to upgrade to see if that fixes some of my issues. But I can't even get, like, in link mode. If I turn both the tunings, one of them's always off. And I have to have the fine tune, like, halfway set up for it to be correct.
Oh.
Yeah, and that was new. I don't remember that. And then I noticed one of the sliders kind of turned off for a second the other day. I thought that was weird, too.
That might be hardware, though.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. It was the first time that showed up. Sounds good, though. It's definitely a game changer to turn the morphing off on that third bank for me. That lets you switch through the oscillator banks, and everything like really came together. I really love it now.
Yeah, it's on my list, even though it's not from 2021. I got it in 2021, so it's exciting to me. That's a 2021 thing.
Same.
And, I mean, at this point, it may replace my graphic VCO. The only thing graphic VCO has that this doesn't have is effects on wavetables, but I don't know if that warrants keeping both. I've just very, very slowly not been using graphic VCO now that I got the piston. And Nick, as you pointed out, being able to set the presets in sync with the other of the Mark IIIs, and having the Bionic Lester using the Harlequin's context to basically set up scenes and sort of more for switch between presets, and having the Lester and the piston as a scene that I can then switch to as I'm playing or recording is holy shit. That is super fucking nice.
That shit works well too. I've got the piston, Lester, and Kermit all syncing pretty nicely when I want them to for presets. I will also say, like, got Greg has this too, I believe. So maybe you don't anymore. The vortices from SSF. You still, you still have.
Depending upon it.
Yeah,
a lot right now, actually.
I do like it. I like it a good bit. I'm definitely not going to get rid of it. It does shave off a little more high end than I expected. Your comment initially about like not putting percussion through it, it's definitely, I have to pick the things that I want to put through it for sure.
Right. It wasn't on my top pick list, but I'm definitely liking it, so it could definitely be on that list for sure. And I don't even have a complaint really about how it muffles things. That's part of the character of it.
True.
You know what I mean, that's kind of what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to be like a tape type of saturation / smudging of the audio. So yeah, certain things I think sound really good through it, others not so much. So I'm coming up with a way to route specific things through it, you know, and then others get routed through Cosmics.
Yeah, I love the Cosmics.
I think is a perfect percussion mixer.
Yeah,
personally,
I think it's my default for everything. I love it. Yeah, I could see having two of them chained, but I do like what the vortices can let you do with feedback for sure. It's really nice for that.
That is a big thing. Yeah, absolutely.
That's mainly what I use it for.
So wait, have we talked about the vortices yet?
Mm-hmm.
Do we want to give a little context for this?
Oh yeah, I guess we can. It's solid state fate, multi-channel mixer that is meant to emulate tape to some degree and tape saturation. It's definitely not a transparent mixer.
No.
And it doesn't actually use real tape. This is an emulation of tape.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. It's just going through some sort of muddy preamps that, you know, affect the audio in a pleasurable way,
Okay.
in my opinion. And like Nick said, it feeds back like a motherfucker if you wanted to. Like you can do some really interesting feedback routing with it, and it sounds great. Like really sounds great.
Yeah, and each like half is kind of muffled in a different way too. Like the mono and the stereo channels are a little different in how they respond to high end and things like that.
Yeah, the auxiliary inputs have more high end than the main mono and stereo inputs.
Oh, is that it? Okay.
Yeah. So like if you want something to be a little more, I don't want to say transparent because none of the inputs seem to be transparent to my ears, but less smudged, use the auxiliary inputs. If you're going for that tape quality all the way, then use the main inputs for sure.
Well, one gripe a little bit about it is I wish they'd kept all the level knobs the same type of knob. That threw me off so much at first. I was like, wait, but because the pan
accidentally hit the pan.
Yeah, accidentally hit the pan. I do it constantly, and maybe it's just like they had space issues, and I get it, but I wish it would have been.
So what I did was I just changed the color knobs of the pan.
I gotta do that.
I did the same thing on the Cosmics, because I was doing the same thing on there too.
I did that too.
Yeah, it comes in handy, you know. So now I have a visual reference. Yeah.
I put like knob caps on the pan on the Cosmics just so it stopped.
Exactly what I did.
Thinking it was the aux.
Exactly what I did, dude. Yep.
I love the Cosmics though. I really love the sweetening circuit and just the ability to overdrive. It's the best mixer in Eurorack I've ever used for sure.
I agree. And that's a hard one to beat because I really loved my Mutamix for years.
True.
Dependent upon it. You know what I mean?
You had that
and now
forever.
This I think was the next best mixer that I've come across.
Yeah, and that was on the negative pile, quote unquote.
Oh,
even though I really like it. That was the closest I could come to a negative because honestly, I've been just really psyched.
I can dip into my number one pick.
Oh yeah,
it's kind of a biggie.
Yeah.
I have some words.
What is it?
That would be VCV Rack 2.
I was thinking it was going to be that or the other one, Starlab.
Starlab is my number 2.
Okay,
I can get to that. I don't have as much to say about that as I do VCV though.
Yeah.
Well, let's not forget about it then. So let's put a pin on it. Let's table it for now.
Pin that. We'll circle back. But yeah, my number one pick for 2021 is VCV Rack version 2.
So you did a deep dive or a pretty deep dive into VCV Rack in the past. What's different in 2, and how are you using it differently than you had say months ago?
So version 2 isn't that much different, I would say. Like, it's better performance. You can run it as a VST within a host now. Like, you can open up in a DAW and route everything, which is pretty cool. That part is not free. That costs money. That's $100 fee to get access to that. They call that VCV Rack 2 Pro. So that's one of the most big changes. But like, yeah, there was a bunch of like performance enhancements. A lot of the default VCV Rack modules got some minor tweaks and changes, which were all better in my opinion. Like, it's just all around more solid. VCV 1, I was enjoying noodling around in, but it wasn't like, it wasn't blowing my mind. You know, there was a lot of snags that I was hitting and performance problems and bugs that I would find. It just felt like it wasn't quite there yet, you know?
Yeah.
But with version 2, it feels there now. Like, it's been a big game changer to me. It came out in early December, if I recall. Maybe mid-December, like that. So it's just squeezing in for 2021. And it's not technically hardware, but I wanted to bring it up because of how I'm using it, which is how I feel like a lot of people are going to be using it as well, and that's in a hybrid.
We never specified hardware. We this is just 2021. Okay. I mean, it could be anything. It could be hardware, software, ideas, concepts, feelings. It was a pretty open-ended list. So don't feel bad about including this.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it does a good enough job of emulating hardware that it's worth mentioning on our podcast. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's not software that's trying to be software. It's literally a virtual Eurorack environment.
And you're integrating it pretty heavily with your other hardware.
Absolutely. I'm full-on hybrid setup now at this point. A couple months back when I was noodling in version 1, it started to get my attention, so I bought a Expert Sleepers ES8 to become the interface between VCV Rack and my hardware modular. I outgrew that within weeks. I took to it very quickly and immediately wanted more inputs and outputs. So I expanded it with the ES5 expander module, and then that still wasn't enough either. So now I'm on an ES9 with an ES5. So I have a ton of inputs and outputs. Yeah. I think I have 16 in, 16 out now.
That's fucking awesome.
It's pretty wild. And this is all as hybrid, you know, between my hardware and VCV Rack. It's been an absolute miracle for my workflow.
So what have you taken out and basically put on VCV Rack?
So I wouldn't say there was a lot that I was taking out. It's more of I can finally grow the way I wanted to, and I've been wanting to. Like,
instead of taking out, like, what is something that you would have maybe bought as a module that now you're like, oh, I don't need to buy that. It doesn't need to be hardware anymore.
Lots of sequencing, a lot of utility. Like I was telling Nick before, like I had 3 rings that I was using on the last album. And that was because I was running out of space and money. Like, that whole album was an experiment to push all the modular stuff that I had as far as it could go within its limitations. You know, like, I was out of rack space, I was out of money, and I was like, okay, let's just focus on what I have, see what type of, you know, algorithmic patches I can come up with and utilize everything. And it was a fun limitation to work within. Now, though, I can take those ideas that I had for those patches and just really fucking run with them. Like, if I want a dozen rings running at once now, I can do that. You know, and I don't need to worry about rack space. I don't need to worry about buying 12 rings. It's kind of phenomenal to me to be able to just grow. You know, the only limitation is my CPU. You know, that's the only thing that holds me back at this point. But I can really just run with some of these concepts that I have, and just playing with this within, you know, the last month since its release, like, been super productive, super fun. And, you know, it leaves space in my hardware rig now for the more boutique shit. You know what I mean? Like, I just got a Starlab, for example. You know what I mean? Like, I have the space now to dedicate to modules that are, you know, more sexy, for lack of a better term. You know what I mean? The really crazy shit.
Not like five switches.
Well, I still have
5 switches.
An array of 5 or 6 switches in my rig, but yeah, those are slowly coming out because I can do almost all my switching now within VCV. So it's things like that, like just tons of utility that I can offload now to the virtual rig, and you know what I mean, and leave the hardware rig for doing things that are not so easily duplicated virtually, like Starlab and reverbs. Any type of processing really, and even complex oscillators. Like the basic oscillators in VCV are fine, and there are some complex ones too, but I'm not too happy with it.
Yeah.
Like the sound quality I think is still, leaves something to be desired.
I agree.
Something I was thinking about when you said you could have, 9 rings. Well, would that actually sound like what you would get if you had 9 rings, or are you going to get this sort of weird new mutated version of that?
It's pretty close.
Okay.
It's close enough. Because as far as I'm aware, it's the same code.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
So the only thing that's different is your ADAC. You know what I mean? So, and the conversion is whatever, I guess. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I know people haven't been that fond of some of the mutable stuff, how it sounds in the first place. You know what I mean? A lot of people think it sounds too digital, things like that. That's fine for me because I'm going for a very digital sound. So the differences between like my hardware rings and my virtual rings is negligible, like I can live with it. But when it comes to like filtering and effects, I'm not too happy with the sonic capabilities of VCV Rack in that regard. There are a few cool effects, but not many. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you look at the effects in there, some of them are very basic. Some of them don't even have CV capabilities, things like that.
Are they modeled off of existing modules, or is it?
It's both.
Okay.
Version 1 has been out for a while, so there's been a lot of people making modules already. They had to convert them to be capable in VCV 2. Like, everyone had to port them over. It wasn't a seamless transition. So people have been cranking stuff out for VCV for a minute now. And sort of like the VST boom of like the early 2000s, where everyone was just cranking out plugins to do, the same thing, you know what I mean? Like every little thing you could think of. There was a lot of overlap and a mountain of shit. There's kind of a mountain of shit in VCV as well. There's a lot of crap you got to sift through to find the gold nuggets, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of modules that people are cranking out that just aren't. They're either overlapping stuff that already exists way too much. Like right now, if you punch in envelope generator, I think there's close to 100 results. Like no joke. I think there's like over 80 to 100 of envelopes, and it's like, okay,
totally necessary.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, options are good, sure, but when you have an oversaturation, when you're trying to get shit done, and you just want to pop in an envelope generator and you hit that tag envelope generator and you're presented 100 fucking results, it gets to be overwhelming, sort of like VSTs were to me, which used to really turn me off to, using them for a while. But if you stick to the modules that are modeled after hardware, those are the ones that I think are the best so far. Like, those are the ones that are staying true to like modular aesthetic. You know what I mean? They're not just shitty VSTs that someone ported over to fit in a 3U virtual rack space. Also, I feel like a lot of the default VCV modules are pretty good. You know what I mean? Like, you can get by using a lot of that stuff and none of the third-party stuff. Like, it's pretty solid.
That's all I've been using so far. I haven't put too many hours in, but I haven't even logged into it, so I can't get the mutable stuff. But yeah, it's not bad. Like you said, the oscillators and the filters are kind of lacking a little bit.
They are, yeah, and that's where the hybrid situation comes into play. You know what I mean? Like, I can just route them through my hardware filters and then back into VCV.
Fuck yeah,
no problem there. Also, a lot of the stuff that I think is on the crap side of stuff, like like I keep making the comparison to VSTs because that's what a lot of these feel like they are or are coming from or are trying to be. And like that I think is against the whole grain of what VCV is supposed to be. You know, it's literally meant to be a virtual modular rack. It's not meant to be another DAW or another host for, you know, whatever random effects people created. Like it's supposed to stick true to emulating a hardware modular.
Right.
There's some modules that are doing that are innovative and new, and there's some that are doing that by emulating already existing hardware. But then there's some that are not at all, and like just the panel is just crammed with, you know, teeny tiny knobs that do a million different things. Like it's not something that you would ever see existing as a module in a real rack,
Right.
you know, and that's the shit that's kind of frustrating. Or they have tons of functionality that's embedded within a right click menu subset, you know, and things like that. It's like, no, I don't want that. That's why I went to modular in the first place. And I definitely don't want it in my virtual rig either. Some of the best I shouldn't say manufacturers, but I guess some of the best designers that I've come across are Valley, Bog Audio, and Extra Tone. They've all made some pretty nifty stuff that I've been using heavily now.
Nice.
Along with like the Audible instrument stuff, which is all mutable ports and things like that. So yeah, it's been a huge game changer.
So you don't deal with like too much latency stuff, dealing with like processing trips in and out, or you just account for it other ways?
Going in a loop through, you know, the modular and back in, I have noticed hardly any latency.
Oh, cool.
However, if you start to use some of the effects in there, that's where the latency is coming from. Yeah, I guess I could dip into some of the bad things I've noticed about VCV.
Yeah.
I'm kind of hyping it up, but it's definitely not like all butterflies and rainbows. Like there's definitely some bullshit that you have to deal with as well. You know, even in VCV Rack 2, I've still already found my fair share of bugs and random CPU spikes on certain modules, random audio dropouts, things not working as they should, like reset and clock just getting wonky from time to time. Like even if I route the same reset to all modules, they won't always be synchronized when I hit run on like the main clock and things like that. Sometimes things are off. Yeah, it's really weird because I don't know what is causing it, and it has to be something in specific modules coding. Some of them are just kind of flaky in that regard, and I have to do like the old school MIDI trick where you just like stop start until everything's synchronized, and it's like, okay, now I'm in sync.
Give me a restart.
There's definitely some bugs. Hopefully they get ironed out over time. I know a lot of people have been constantly rolling out updates already since the release of VCV2. Like every time I open it, I have to restart it to apply updates to either modules or to VCV itself.
So are the updates to modules individual? Do you update them separately, or do you update? Okay, so it's not like you have to get everything from VCV Rack to get the updated modules.
It's all done in the background. Like whatever modules you have installed to your library, if an update becomes available, it'll notify you in the top with like a little red dot, and it'll say like such and such module has been updated, and you have to restart VCV to apply that update.
Right.
Like even initially, none of the Instruo stuff, which was available in VCV1, was available in VCV2 until like last week. They finally finished porting it all over and made it all available in version 2.
Do you fuck with that shit at all? The Instruo stuff?
A little bit. Yeah. Some of it. I would really like to see their R-bar granular in there, but it's not. But they have like some interesting shit, like their complex oscillator and some of their utilities, which have been nice. Yeah. And that kind of ties in with what we were saying earlier. You know, like I have a feeling a lot of companies who like can't, due to component shortages or whatever, release a module or like an idea that they had right now as hardware, might start doing it in VCV Rack. You know what I mean? Like might bring the concept over and release it as a virtual module, because it's not all free either.
Right.
Like some of them are paid for. So if someone had a cool design, they still wanted to make some money off of it, they can release it that way. I would love to see more of the big names in the modular world embrace VCV and bring some of their stuff over either for free or for pay, either way.
Yeah, because
support it.
They're not in VCV, but Noise Engineering was one of the first to kind of embrace, like, here's a virtual version of our stuff, and they've even made a physical module now, I think, because one of the virtual ones was so popular, like one of the Versios, that they were like, oh, we'll make a panel for it and sell it kind of thing. But it's almost a shame they're not kind of in VCV too,
Yeah, that's my number one pick. I don't have a whole lot more to say about it now, but I did want to give a shout out to, I'm probably going to mispronounce his name, but Omri Cohen, the gentleman that we were watching that live stream of.
Did the VCV debut live stream?
Yeah, he did the live stream for VCV2 for like hours. And
it was the O Coast.
The O Coast. Yes, like. Since that night, I've been watching more of his live streams and his YouTube videos. Super informative, incredibly chill dude. Kind of hard to understand what he's saying sometimes, but it's okay, And his stuff leans heavily onto like the ambient side of things, which isn't always, my cup of tea. But he gives a good, he gives you a good map through some of the crap modules that I was talking about, and like points out which ones he uses often and why. Super useful, especially to anyone who's just getting into it. Like, you can just pretty much stick to some of the example modules that he's showing off and you'll go far with them. You know what I mean? You don't have to wade through all the shit like I've been doing, testing and figuring out which ones are good for me, which ones I hate,
That's why I just asked you. I was like, what should I get? And you're like, the bog audio shit.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks.
But yeah, everything leading up to this kind of felt like a beta. Like version 2 finally feels like, the real deal. It's like when, whatchamacallit, Audio Mulch, was like...
Finally 1.0.
Yeah, finally 1.0, and it just felt cohesive. That's kind of where we're at with VCV2. It kind of feels like it's out of beta stage for the most part. Feels solid enough, at least for me, to center my entire workflow around it right now and try to make an album with it. How about you, Dave?
Yeah, Dave.
What about me?
How about you, Dave?
What about me?
Do you have a top pick of 2021?
I don't have a top pick. My list is I've got a list, but I can't.
What's at the top of the list?
Well, okay, I guess maybe subconsciously I made this list in a particular order. So yeah, I'll just go through it. Some of them are more detailed than others. We've already talked about the Piston Honda and the fact that it wasn't actually 2021. But me getting it, it's fantastic. Also, I wanted to say Polyend Tracker. I'm glad I got one. I think they nailed the design. And my complaint about it is actually not related to it. It is more about my damaged brain. One of the things I'm finding is I'm basically just going back to old habits. And I'm not really necessarily making that music that I made, 10, 15, 20 years ago. But I'm sitting down and I'm just like, cranking up the speed, filling in every note. I'm like, I'm having a hard time restraining myself and like leaving empty space, and music is the space between notes, and it's like, no, there's an empty block. It should be filled with something. So it's really just more of like, man, I really need to take a look as to why my brain does that. But as far as the design goes and execution, Polyend Tracker is amazing. I think that was a slam dunk. I think it deserves to be high on the list, even if it was 2020 officially came out. I'm fine with including it in 2021. Up next, though, and I have a lot more notes about this. This is a video module. I got the LZX FKG3 Keyer. It's a Keyer module. It is fantastic. It is RGB for foreground, background, and a completely tertiary input. You can swap back and forth between background, foreground, and you can key off of Luma or any of the RGB values. There's a threshold and a softness that is nice. It's not just a hard keyer, and those are CVable. I have a Memory Palace, but that was from a while ago. I sort of feeling that this is the first of that new generation of LZX modules.
It is.
If they're going to keep going down this path, putting a lot of functionality into a single module like this, I think it's great, and I'm really looking forward to their the TBC2, the time-based correction module, which is like dual sync with Genlock, time-based correction, format conversions for a lot of different ones, and there's an image loader on it that I don't know if it's going to be like the Memory Palace or what, how it's actually going to end up being used, but I'm really looking forward to that one. But the problem is, and this goes back to what we talked about earlier, is this generation of stuff is taking a lot longer than they expected to actually come to show up in production. Really taking a long time. And one of the problems that's happened is there's now a gap because they discontinued the previous generation of stuff. And this, a lot of this was going to replace it, or maybe not one for one, module by module, but you were going to, basically, we're not making the old stuff, but here's this new thing that's right around the corner. Well, the corners turned out to be, 20 blocks long. And so right now we're in a really weird space where you can't get the old stuff from them. And the new stuff is, it's TBD. So getting anything right now off of Reverb is really out of control.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah, and Structure's the same way. The secondhand market for Structure for homogeneous tones is the prices are through the roof. But this is basically the worst time to get into modular video, just because you're between generations and no one knows when the next generation is going to be done. I'd be sad to hear that someone was discouraged from getting into it because it was already kind of video modular was already like a little bit of it's an expensive thing to get into, and now it's like, oh yeah, no, it's 3 times as much as what it was in the past. So that's a little bit of a bummer, but if this FKG gear is any indication as to what they're eventually going to be putting out, very, very excited for LZX, what they're doing. That's the one I had the most notes on. Next, and we don't have to relitigate this, but Erica Matrix Mixer, I just think they nailed the design, and I think it's worth mentioning again. I'm now at the point where I'm using it all the time. I'm using, even just being able to go through presets and using that as a way to sort of control going through a song and going through a composition. It just opens up a million possibilities that would be very, very difficult to organize without, being able to have everything plugged in, and then, you pick and choose and do these combinations and this routing on the fly and being able to switch between it. It's changing the way that I'm using things just because of how easy it is to set up a preset and make, 256 of them and organize them in a way that, as I'm going through a song and I'm going through different matrix mixer patterns and scenes, and switching between them is, it's seamless. There's no clicking. There's nothing weird about it that would prohibit it. So the more I'm using it, the more I like it and the more I appreciate how well they executed it. And I'm going to say the same thing about the Harlequin's context. I think maybe one of my complaints, maybe I don't even know if we necessarily talked about it, but they overdid it.
Yeah, we talked about that last time.
And basically now that I'm like, I'm just ignoring this weird scene and act morphing thing, and really just using it how I want to use it and getting comfortable with it. Very similar as far as like having this, the setup, having all this patching done, and giving it motion over time, not just through modulation, but changing what the modulation is over time. Really grokking the Harlequin's context and the Matrix Mixer together. It's really just making things a lot more fun. Yeah.
Interesting, because I'll in a way piggyback off your last two, because I have them both. Like Harlequin's context at first, I was like, oh, I'll only ever use this live. But now I use it constantly when I'm patching. I was using it a lot last night to like change chords and stuff like that. I'm always thinking of new ways to use it simply for the offsets. Mm-hmm. I will say the Erica Matrix Mixer, I never ever use it ever.
Really? Wow.
I really like it. I never makes its way into me doing stuff. I don't know what it is about it. Like I realize I kind of don't think of things in that way, and I don't often want to reach for it, because in my mind when I'm like, oh, it's this big buffered mult that I can use to send various versions of signals out, and that's cool. And maybe it's because it's like doesn't sit well on my desk with the other things that I have right now. but it's often sitting there and not even on. And I'm like questioning why I have it, even though I know like I love it in theory. I don't use it ever.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like the little bit that I've looked up, it does seem like there is a little bit of not love-hate isn't the right word, but more along line like whatever the equivalent binary of I use this all the time and it's sitting there. It seems to be the case. There doesn't seem to be a middle ground with this.
Yeah. Yeah, it's strange. Even though I'm always using buffered bolts and I always need more, there's something about it where it's like a external system, and part of me wishes it was in the rack magically.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's just kind of a mental thing.
That is a perfectly fair review of it. So, and the only other things on my list, Moskva.
Killer.
That's 2021, I think.
For us, it is at least. I think it might have been.
It was close enough that I'm fine with including in this list. I'm now at the point where I'm thinking of getting a second one and linking it.
It's so fucking good. I think there was even a podcast where I was like, oh, I'm not using this much. I use it constantly now. Like I love it. All the CV options, the range function and transposition at the same time. You can do, like, I'm constantly making these little melody machines with that and the Performer now. That's like so much fun for me.
I can't imagine not having the expander. I think the expander is absolutely key to getting the most out of it. Otherwise, I think you just have an 8-step sequencer that's probably kind of boring.
Definitely.
Having the expander and adding modulation to everything and all these different dimensions, and really the idea of having a second one and linking them and turning that into 16 steps, or having them, basically each of them on their own, is really appealing.
That's Chaos Devices, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Moskva.
Yep.
Is that
Moskva 2?
Is that the version 2?
It is. It is version 2. Yeah, I forgot to append the 2. Same with the expander.
Just giving some context.
Yeah. Same with Ostin Kino.
We mentioned it before, but
I'd never even had the first one, so I don't know enough about the first one to compare it. So I don't know if this is a massive upgrade or.
Yeah, it is a lot more features and functionality and the ability to save presets and things like that. I don't even know if the sub steps existed. I don't use that as often. But it's even like I got it in the Metropolis at relatively similar period of time when I was trying to expand sequencing, and I still have ignored the Metropolis in some ways because of the Moskva. It's just that and the Performer is such a fun combo. Even though I was using the Metropolis recently just to dig into that a little more. It's cool too. I like them all quite a bit.
Nice. And honestly, the last thing on my list, I sort of rattled through all of these, and it's a weird one, but I want to give it. It was done well enough that I kind of want to give them a little bit of attention. Black hole cases. I don't know if I mentioned this in the past. It's a small company from Dayton, Ohio. I just sort of found them while being lazy and not wanting to build my own case. Super well built, and they've got this sort of like textured finish to it, and the color schemes that they have, everything looks like 1950s scientific equipment. Like it's just like this weird scientific blue, this olive green, and even their logo is looks like an atomic symbol. The aesthetic, absolutely love, and the price was decent. I got the 6U 50 HP, which since I was never gonna be able to find one of those Pittsburgh structures of that similar size. I broke down and got it. They're not local. Dayton's not local, but Rust Belt, fellow Rust Belt city.
Ooh, Ohio.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot to say about Ohio.
There is. I heard a rumor about the new Pittsburgh Voltage Lab, the second one. It is apparently 2 rows of 91 HP.
What?
That is a big module.
So this is like a full synthesizer, like even more so than the original Voltage Lab.
Yeah, that is more than twice the size of the original, which I still like a lot. I use the original Voltage Lab quite a bit, just the synth portion, as I've said before, and it's fucking dope. So I'm curious to see what they come up with here.
So the only inside scoop that you've got is its mammoth size.
Yep, that's it so far. Tried to do a little digging at one point, but I didn't get much back. So,
well, what was your tactic for digging? Was it espionage? Were you using the power of your persuasion? Were you
just Twitter DMs, Dave?
No.
has gotten me surprisingly far in some instances. But no, I saw they were doing some podcast or something recently, and they leaked that it was going to be a 91 HP wide, which is that was my first monorocket case, was 2 rows of 91 HP, so that's pretty big.
My first monorocket was a fucking Lexington case.
Oh, that's right, that white Lexington.
Oh yeah, that was Prometheus Burning White.
Yeah, it was.
Or Prometheus White.
Prometheus White.
So no one had requested that before, so you named the color after us. That was I missed that case.
Yeah, that was a pretty case. I totally forgot about that. Kind of wish I could snap my fingers and you had it again.
Oh, and then you have all those white cables now. Ooh, that would be very Winter Wonderland. You're right. You look sad.
Yeah, I miss it, dude. That was a nice game. I'm glad to know it went to a good home. Somebody in Ohio has. I forget who now, but yeah, that was my pride and joy for a few years there. Well, I have a number 2 pick.
Wait, we just completely skipped. Like, we went from number 1 and then just left entirely.
I figured we were gonna go round and round, dude. I gave my number 1 pick.
Oh, so I ruined this format. Too. I just didn't stop.
You did. You're going off script. You're a fucking runaway train, but it's okay. That's all right.
I'm surprised.
Is there nothing I can't fuck up?
Somebody doesn't look at the spreadsheet.
What spreadsheet? Okay. I didn't even know we had a spreadsheet.
It's all right.
The spreadsheet, Dave.
The spreadsheet that we use to keep track of topics, Dave, for the episode. But that's okay. We'll circle back in your next performance review.
Oh, you didn't share that with me.
And review that.
I did not get notified. Oh
man. No, that's fine. We're doing it live, dude. It's free jazz.
That's right.
You could have jumped in and said, you know what, dude, you need to shut up. Your list is too long. You're taking too long. It's a stand up, so it's be 5 minutes.
No.
Didn't matter to me. I like giving things in order. I picked 3, and I figured we'd go around.
Well, now that we can't go back. We can't go back. The damage is done, and
that's right.
There's no recovering.
I kind of fucked up too. I just said everything too, so it's fine. Fuck it.
All right. Well, Greg, the floor is now yours again.
Number 2 pick, 2021, Strymon Starlab.
Not surprising.
No.
Yeah, I knew that one was kind of predictable. It was so predictable that I couldn't even make it number 1, as much as I enjoy it. I was like, nah, that's like low hanging fruit, you know.
So is there anything that you don't like about it at this point?
That I don't like about it.
Yeah, that's more interesting.
Yeah.
Lack of algorithms. There's only 3 main algorithms to select from, and they all kind of overlap a little, in my opinion. I would have liked more algorithms to pick from and have them more different between the other ones. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like these 3 that it comes with are a great, it's a great tool set, those 3. But it would be cool to be able to go beyond that, have some weirder, darker reverbs in there. You know what I mean? Like, just a couple, just more variants, because of that, I would not say that the Starlab is the end all be all of modular reverb. It's not, but it does what it does very well within the realm of those 3 algorithms,
Yeah.
It sounds great to my ears. The 3 algorithms that you do have, though, you can get very flexible with, which is one reason why this has become my go-to over Halls of Valhalla cart in ZDSP, which has been my favorite reverb for years now. This, I think, kind of beats it now, finally, just simply because of the flexibility, the ability to CV control so many different aspects of each algorithm. Whereas with the ZDSP, you only have 3.
It's literally surrounded with CV.
Yeah. It's definitely not a set it and forget it reverb. I feel like if you're doing that with it, you shouldn't bother.
Right.
You should probably get one of their pedals instead, which is cheaper and probably more specific to your needs. I don't know. That's one reason why the ZDSP was always so annoying to me. As much as I loved the sounds of Halls of Valhalla, you only have 3 parameters to control,
Right.
you know? And that's why I kept Verb in my rack for years and years now, because of its CV capabilities. Again, not to talk too much about my own work in the middle of the episode, but on that album, like, there was a lot of sounds I created by CVing the fuck out of like Verb, you know, like using it not necessarily as just a straight up reverb, but as like its own instrument, you know,
Right.
and hitting it with tons of CV and sequencing. You know what I mean? It's not the type of thing where you just want to turn up the decay and leave it go.
Right.
I mean, it sounds good if you do that, but you're missing out on, I think, the entire point of the module.
So I've seen a lot of videos, or all the videos I've seen of it. Really, people are emphasizing it cranked to 11, the sort of lush richness, and those only 3 modes, but can you do things like the sort of like a short, quick?
100%. I've my go-to lately has actually been on, I think, its tightest size setting, and the decay on the smaller side. I've been finding ways to get kind of like a degraded tape sound out of it by keeping it short and manipulating, you know, the size and also the delay, you know, circuit that's in there and shit like that, hitting at it just the right times. I haven't fucked with the Carplus Strong functionality too much. I've just been using the delay itself, but hitting it with CV and things like that. And I've said this in the past when it comes to delays too, like, or not delays, but reverbs rather, that I'm not a huge fan of shimmer. You know, like I loved the Halls of Valhalla card, did not really like the shimmer card. Loved the noise engineering reverb that I'm forgetting the name of now, but
I can't remember.
I can't either.
The bat verb, I'll say that. I don't think that's the name of it, but it was the bat verb, you know what I mean? It had a couple different modes, and one of them was shimmer. Pretty much never touched the shimmer mode. Like, I'm not a huge shimmer fan, so I really like the fact that you can actually bring that in and out of this with each algorithm if you want. It's not like you're not locked into shimmer mode, you know what I mean? You can scale that back if you want, remove it entirely, or CV it, whatever, you know? It's really interesting module to me. Like, yes, it's big and pricey, but you know, it stands out to me over pedals simply for its, you know, versatility. Really digging on it. Good for experimenting, good for sound design, and cool just as like its own instrument, you know. It even has like a resonator mode. Could be standalone voice if you want it to be, which is weird.
Oh.
I haven't really used it in that way yet, but yeah, you can do that.
Wait, would it track?
I don't know. I mean, I think that's part of it. Has pitch quantization built into it that you can manipulate. You can actually change the scale.
Oh, that's cool.
Weird.
It's kind of an under the hood setting. If you hold in the size button, or the button rather that's next to size, just it's the infinite button. I think you can turn that into. You can use that and the size knob to manipulate scales and pitch quantization and things like that. So you can do a lot of weird shit with it. It's very, very musical. But yeah, you can totally do a cranked up to 11, you know, ambient wash for all infinity if you want. And it sounds good. In some ways, I feel like Halls of Valhalla sounded better in that regard, honestly, for really big stuff.
Well, they also had 8 different algorithms.
Yeah.
So I think that having a larger variety of stuff probably helped that.
Which speaks a lot to that cart still, you know, in my opinion. Like, with only 3 parameters that you can manipulate, you could get some really great sounding big stuff out of that cart. But yeah, like with this module, you can do that, but like I think it really shines with evolving, changing reverbs, not necessarily just big reverbs, but like complex manipulated sounds. Yeah, and that's my number 2 pick.
Very nice. Nick, what was your number 2? Or did you already go through it?
I already went through everything just like you.
So Greg.
Well, what's my number 3?
That is very much my next question.
Okay, it's kind of a tie.
So this is 3 and 4 is what you're saying.
Yeah, I couldn't pick. So one is more interesting than the other, but I still wanted to give it an honorable mention at least. I would say it leans more towards the SSF triptych, or Solid State Fate triptych, which I mentioned a lot in the past. Originally, that was a module that I had like no interest in. Like, I felt like I already had enough distortion, enough filters, enough delay modules that I didn't see the need to buy a module that was like all three of those sandwiched into one.
Yeah.
But, and the demos didn't really blow me away by it either. Like, from what I heard, I was like, meh. But I took a leap and I bought it, and slowly over time it has really grown on me, and now I find it in like pretty much all of my patches constantly in some degree. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm not using all three circuits on it, I'm using maybe just the carpless mode, or maybe I'm just using the overdrive mode, or just the filter, like whatever. It's kind of like a fuck shit up module Swiss Army knife. I'm always able to get something out of it that I like. And I think that's what's special about it, is all three of those things together kind of makes it unique, and they all jive with each other. It's really well done and thought out,
So what's an example of how you use it? Basically, for people who aren't super familiar with what it can do.
Well, it's an overdrive circuit with wave shaper and carpless / delay that you can adjust the mix in between. And then it all gets routed through a filter, either pre or post. And it also has a VCA built in for the output. Pretty nice headroom and overdrive on the input. Mm-hmm. So you're getting saturation and distortion and like just destructive qualities from a number of different ways, with them all combined. I've been using it mostly in just like helping to create texture on like percussion. I've mentioned in previous episodes that I find it a bit muddy, in some ways. So I don't like to run it like 100% wet, but like as a layer on top of certain percussive elements, I really enjoy it. Glitchy percussion stuff going through it can be a lot of fun. And just to add some beef to like just strange textures that I'm creating, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I always find weird ways to use it. It finds its way in there somehow. Honorable mention for third pick / fourth pick would go to the drawing a blank because I didn't even jot it down. Dual Dagger by Shaq. Yeah, Shaq Matt. Dual Dagger stereo filter. Love it. I wanted a compact stereo filter that wasn't like super expensive, and there's not a whole lot out there for some reason in that regard. Like, either it's a DJ style filter, or it's like, what is the one that like Make Noise makes?
QPOS.
Yes, thank you. Like, they're gigantic and expensive and not what I needed. Like, I just wanted something to be able to, filter a pad. You know what I mean? Like, in a musical way, like following like distortion and reverb or something like that, or to filter the output of clouds or something like that. You know what I mean? Just really basic shit that I didn't need a $500 huge stereo filter to do. You know what I mean? This thing is 8 HP. Actually, it might even be less than 8. It might even be 6. I forget. But it's small.
Is it multi-mode?
Yes. Yeah. It has a high pass and a low pass that you can blend in between, and you can adjust the cutoff of, or you can even flip the mode and adjust both to be a variable band pass. And it sounds great. And, it's just, I don't know. There's not, that's why it was kind of like honorable mention, because it's not that elaborate of a module. There's not a whole lot of bells and whistles going on there. But for the size and the price, super useful to me. Like, I keep finding a lot of use for it, because I'm doing a lot more with stereo these days. In fact, that's one of my only complaints about the triptych, is I feel like that would be worlds more useful to me, even more than it is currently, if it was stereo. Like, that would be amazing. But for whatever reason, they stuck with mono. But
I think Shaq Matt's killing it, actually. Like, I really like their stuff.
This is my first model.
Their designs are interesting. Like, I have that Time Apprentice coming on the way, the clock divider, but the Harlequin's Context is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that is from them, too. Yeah. Okay, I forgot.
And they generally have everything as DIY, too. Yeah, they're pretty cool. I like what they're doing.
It seems like they're a little under the radar. I mean, I pay attention to what they're doing, and I did not notice that stereo filter.
I didn't either. It took a lot of digging for it to even come to my attention. You know what I mean? Like, I kept trying to figure out like a stereo solution. And then like I just kind of ran into a post on Muffs about it, and I was like, wait a minute, what the fuck is this? You know what I mean? I was like, this is small, looks exactly what I want. It had the high pass and low pass, you know what I mean, with the ability to do band. And yeah, I'm like, okay, this is everything that I wanted.
Yeah.
It's like somebody saw that there was a big gap in the market for something exactly like that, and they filled it, and they did a great job, in my opinion.
Or they've been reading your dream journal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have a new one coming out. I think it's still called Medusa Mod or something else, but it's like a Euclidean LFO. It's a pretty interesting idea, actually. Like, I guess a synced LFO based off Euclidean kind of sequences, and I'm like pretty curious about it. If they have a kit, that would be very interesting to me to get one.
That sounds interesting. That was my list of good stuff.
There's no honorable mention? There's no...
No. I just have the one thing that was that didn't cut the mustard for me.
Go for it.
Slight complaint. That was Mutable Instruments beads.
Oh, yeah. Same.
Took a year to get, and it didn't last too long on my rack once I finally got it in
Lasted
there.
a couple weeks for me.
Yeah. I sold mine. Like, I figured I would keep it to see if I eventually, got to that point with it. Almost every time I was still going to Clouds / Monsoon over it. And I was like, like, I don't know. Especially with the extra modes that Clouds give you. It's just, I mean, I guess that's what they were going for, was a more refined Clouds. And that's cool, but like, should have refined the other modes too.
Yeah.
And had them available on there. And then maybe I would have kept beads. But like, yeah, because I still use the other modes on Clouds constantly. Like, I don't know. It's Swiss Army knife to me. But something of interest, though, Emily posted on the Mutable Instruments forums in response to a post that she'll be releasing the source code for beads in about 3 to 4 months at the time of this recording, at least.
Parasites.
So... Exactly. Yeah. Like, once that's out there, I'm super, super excited to see what people do with it, and to see, what the eventual Parasite firmware will be for beads, and to see what variations, like hardware wise, like, what's going to be the monsoon of beads. I'm real stoked to see, and hopefully it gets ported to VCV Rack as well, because I'm using Clouds in there a lot. In conjunction with my 2 hardware Clouds. Like, you can never have enough Clouds, in my opinion. But yeah, that's everything on my list. My top picks, my mild disappointments.
So then, what are we all looking forward to in 2022?
Oh, that was a good question.
I've got a list of some of that stuff, actually.
I didn't make a list, but I have a couple things off the top of my head, I could say, yeah.
I don't have a list. And I sort of covered it in the LZX section of video stuff that I'm looking forward to coming out. Outside of that, mostly my big thing is I just want time to work on things. That's not a module, not something I can buy, but I like high on my wish list is to just have time to be able to spend and get stuff done. You've prepared a list, which is better than the 2 of us.
Really, the only one that I even want to mention is the Oxi One Sequencer is kind of the top thing I'm looking for, and that's now in production. I've been waiting for over half a year. I think I pre-ordered that in June, and they're finally shipping out now. And I may have delayed mine because I also got the Oxi Pipe, which is the Eurorack module that's passive that connects to the HDMI connection on the Oxi One to bring all the analog outputs out of there. And given that it's HDMI, I'm also wondering if that wouldn't work exactly the same with the Evaton Link, considering I guess it's just the same thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I've either bought the 3rd Evaton Link module that I wanted anyway, but haven't built yet, or sadly I've probably slowed down my getting this device because they're going to bundle the 2 together, but I'm also not in some rush. But I'm really excited to get like polyphonic sequencing into the mix again, especially with the qubit chord and the Access Virus, which is still one of the few hardware synths I still have left.
Oh, you still have a Virus?
Absolutely. Still have the Virus tie.
Which model?
The tie desktop.
No
oh,
shit.
Yeah.
I thought you got rid of that fucking years ago.
I teased that multiple times and never did. A few people never bit on it, and I've just held on to it.
I miss my TI, dude, like a motherfucker.
That's the thing. I still have hundreds of patches that I've made on there, too. Like banks of patches that I've made from scratch. So I'm kind of glad that I have it for that, too.
It's crazy how ahead of its time it was.
Way ahead.
When it came
Even
out.
with the TI, the whole concept, the VST integration and shit like that, that was way ahead of anybody else.
People gave it shit.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Nothing really has come close to it since.
No.
It's been over a decade.
Still what like Depeche Mode uses when they tour and shit like that. It's still like not much that can really touch it. Yeah, I'm excited for that sequencer because it's kind of like the Deluge sequencer, but like a shitload of CVIO, 8 pairs of CV gate for sequencing, and MIDI out and that HDMI out.
I was going to ask you what this is. I'm not familiar, and it's possible our listeners are also not familiar.
It's a hardware button grid sequencer that's MIDI and CV, but it seems to be like almost end all be all. It's got like all the electron trigger conditions in it. It's got polyphonic sequencing. It's got chord modes that'll help you figure out which chords to play, kind of thing, like a lot of devices do now. But it just looks pretty rad.
So this is kind of like monomish?
A little bit. Not like the apps on there. It's more like straightforward left to right sequencing, like piano roll style. But the CV gate options, like it's the most like I don't have polyphonic MIDI to CV right now, and I'm excited to have that again. It looks like I'd be able to drive a lot. Like I could play a live set with just that sequencer and a modular and a rhythm.
Oh wow,
kind of thing. Yeah, it seems very, very capable. Very nice button grid, definitely for editing and everything like that. 16:8 kind of thing, I think. Very compact, can work just over Bluetooth too, to like a laptop. So, first impressions from people that are getting it, it seems to be pretty on the mark, and they've been working on it for a while. They actually delivered on time, so it's pretty impressive, given all the shit that's going on now.
Yeah, I haven't heard of that before either.
Yeah, that's the big one that I've been looking forward to. And that was kind of why I sold the Pyramid Mark III too, because I wasn't using it, and I also was like, oh, this is about, going to cover the price of that, and this would eclipse everything I was doing with the Pyramid. Gives you the ability to have a real keyboard too to use, which I don't quite have right now unless I hook my key step up to the Performer, and that's still not quite the same. So kind of excited to have something like that that'll integrate polysynths in with the modular stuff. I think musically that'll be something I want to do.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. And it's imminent. I mean, this is something you're going to be getting soon.
Oh yeah. I will at the latest be getting it in February.
Oh shit, that's real soon.
But they're shipping like 90 out a week or something like that. So they've been pretty transparent about the whole thing. And they actually ship some out to people by Christmas, which was their goal. So they hit it. So that's always pretty impressive.
I have 3 things I'll mention briefly. One should be shipping this month finally, and that's my pre-order for the Microcosm, the hologram Microcosm pedal.
Hell yeah.
Excited to integrate that with my modular and have be able to go in and out with it. The Plankton / Winter modular Zaps drum module. I'm kind of really hyped for that thing, and I hope it comes out on track. Like it's supposed to be out, I think they said first quarter of 2022. So I've been keeping an eye on that. I'm not a fan of pre-ordering, so I haven't done that, but once I see that it's actually out, I'll probably jump on it. And then one that we've mentioned briefly in the past that still has yet to come out, but is supposed to be coming out soon, and that's the Miso modular cornflakes granular processor.
Yeah.
Kind of hyped for that thing. I was hyped for that thing more than beads originally, and now since I've kind of flipped on beads, I'm hyped about it even more.
Right.
I'm hoping this fills the gap for me that I'm looking for. That's about it. I guess we can wait to see what the fuck gets announced at NAMM or whatever, if there's any big announcements.
Yeah.
But
I don't know if they're doing it. I think they might have scrapped NAMM or something like that.
Oh, completely?
I don't know. I saw something about that today that might have indicated there wasn't going to be a NAMM. But I was going to say the cornflake seems like it's a little controversial to the way they're going about it, like pre-ordering a 3D render picture off Control Mod and things like that. A lot of people that are complaining.
Why I haven't pre-ordered it. Yeah, because it seems like vaporware currently. Yeah. Like there's no demos except for like the early prototypes. There's been no announcements since those early prototypes. It's been almost a year of radio silence, except for it popping up as being available for pre-order at like Perfect Circuit, and it's just like you're saying, like it's a rendered picture, and it's like I'm
not a venture capitalist. I'm not here to fund your company.
Right. Like if it's only going to come out if it gets enough pre-orders, then just do a Kickstarter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But so yeah, I'm waiting to see if it actually comes out and more demos of it in action. But I'm optimistic about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it looks interesting. I'd love to see a good demo.
That's all Eyes got.
So is that it? Did we wrap up 2021?
I think we did.
We weren't too harsh on it.
I mean, it's kind of hard to be.
Like,
so much shit didn't come out. You know what I mean? And I'm almost glad because I didn't have the money for shit that I had originally had planned for. I ended up downsizing instead of expanding. The downsizing in conjunction with VCV Rack, like I'm super productive right now, more so than I've been since I was working on that last record. Like I had a burst of productivity for a couple months while I was working on that album, and I've been kind of in a lull since until like these last few weeks. All of a sudden I'm finding myself actually making progress, and it's kind of refreshing.
Yeah, I feel that. I'm in a similar spot. I've been getting a lot done when I sit down to do anything. That's been nice. Just a little bit of focus and nothing shifted too much fundamentally, so that helps a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I was going to say something like, take that 2021, but...
Yeah, suck it, 2021.
I didn't like give him the business.
Put that in your pipe, 2021.
Even 2021 didn't want to be 2021 this year.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this is hard. I get it. I just want to stay in bed too, 2021.